I think anybody who would come to chapel on a rainy morning like this must be one of two kinds of people. Either you're terribly somber and weighed down by the rainy weather we've had in the last couple of days and the week and a half of inhumane humidity that's been plaguing us. Or if you're not one of these people, you're one who has a sense of humor. And that is what I'd like to talk to you about this morning. I'd like to point out one of the characteristics of this student body that has never failed to impress me. And I think that it's a characteristic of Augsburg College and of the Augsburg spirit that comes to the notice of visitors who come to our campus, visiting speakers. They're sometimes surprised by a sense of humor. They're sometimes shocked and taken back by the lightness of spirit and the buoyancy of attitude as found on the part of our students. I think that they find that you have a readiness and a willingness to bubble over at laughter at just about any time and just about any place on campus. I remember, for example, the quizzical look on old Meredith Wilson's face about a year ago when the student body good-naturedly laughed at something that he said. He was surprised, he was taken back, because I'm sure that the students that he faced at the university were very often a kind of a grim lot, and he had to work very hard for any kind of such response from them. I remember the laughter in chapel this fall when that very nice young lady from the Newman Center was here in chapel. And she said something about being in bed, and she said said it in an ambiguous way, and you chose to interpret it in your own way, in a way that happened to be humorous. She didn't expect that in chapel. A few days ago, Dr. Pennington talked to you in chapel, and he had some very serious things to say. But you responded so warmly to him that he started to joke with you, and he almost forgot what he was going to say. He almost didn't get to his speech or his chapel talk. What happened, I think, was very important, because what happened was that a serious moment was transformed into a profoundly personal exchange which took place. Now, a critic might say about these things that sometimes you flop onto a level of being frivolous and silly. That is, you laugh all too easily. But I think that even the severest critic would admit that this happens only rarely. Far more often you exhibit an unusual flexibility, an easy transcendence over the mundaneness of life and the problems of life. This is the surprising and this is the pleasing characteristic of the spirit of Augsburg College. Spirit of humor and happiness which lies close beneath the surface of your life on the campus. In this spirit, you are not unlike Jesus Christ, the one who is the spirit of the campus. Now, what we know about Jesus, we find in the writings of the New Testament, and these writings, for the most part, have a serious and a practical intent. But not even this serious format can obscure the humor of Jesus. We know, for example, that Jesus chose as his disciples common men like Peter, a fisherman, common men like James and Philip. Can anyone imagine such people being without humor? Can anyone imagine Jesus' intimate moments with these men being without laughter? We know, too, that Jesus went to parties. We thank God today for homecoming and for parties. Jesus went to parties held by the leading officials of some of the towns that he went to. He went to the marriage feast of Cana and so forth. In fact, Jesus' critics accused him of associating too much with some of the lower classes of society, the gluttons and the drunkards. Now, that criticism was meant to malign Jesus unjustly. But the point is, could Jesus have been the center of a morose crowd? Can we picture Jesus as Israel's absolute spoil sport? Can we picture Jesus as the world's perfect wet blanket? The one who always spoiled every situation to which he came? No, I don't think so. We know from close examination of Jesus' teachings that he often depended upon humor to open up his listeners and to drive home his point. The religiously serious Pharisees were the most frequent targets of these jibes. The Pharisee laboriously cleansing the outside of the drinking cup while the inside was encrusted with dirt. The Pharisee straining at something as minor as a gnat, but then easily gulping down problems as big as camels. The Pharisee with a block of wood in his eye, trying meticulously to clean a little speck out of someone else's eye. All of these are caricatures drawn by Jesus using the ludicrous and the ironic, lampooning the somber and sober fakes of his day. I'm sure that these comments evoked chuckles and knee slaps from Jesus' friends. But you know, we don't often see this aspect of the New Testament. We don't always see this humor in the Gospels. One of the reasons, I suppose, is that we hear these sayings so often that the humor wears off. Another reason, I'm sure, is because of the serious intent of the New Testament concerning Jesus' life and his death. We sometimes fail to see the humorous alongside of this serious message and this serious intent. But the fact is that we do miss the humor of the Gospels very often, and this raises some questions in my mind. First of all, if we are deadened to the spirit of humor in Jesus' sayings, then have we also become deadened to the spirit of love, to the spirit of truth, to the spirit of the human relevance of Jesus' teachings? Do we really hear and understand, or have we heard so often that we no longer understand? Then there's a second question that comes to mind. Do we run the danger of separating religion and life in a way that Jesus never did? Do we make religion somber and the rest of life just one big bag of laughs and kicks? From what I've seen, those of you who come to chapel don't do this. But I wonder about those who don't come to chapel. Do they see the Spirit of Christ as a morose thing? If they do, maybe you ought to help them to see the transcendence and the lordship of Jesus Christ through humor. And then there's one final inevitable question. And that is, why in the world would a person ever give a serious chapel talk about humor? You have no idea how unhumorous I happen to feel today. You have no idea how hard it is for a serious, middle-aged, middle-class religion professor to go on day after day polishing the outside of the cup. So that's why there's a serious chapel talk on humor. But why don't you be a little Christ to me? Why don't you forgive me? Why don't you share your humor with me? Have you seen another movie that's been like bedazzled with its humor? If you have, let me know. Is there anything like Laugh-In? Anything else like Laugh-In on TV? Let me know. Have you ever read any poetry lately along the lines of Jack Lemmon or E. E. Cummings or Christian Morgenstern, something new along this line? Let me know. Has anyone tickled your mind and made you laugh in your mind, like some of the prints and the posters of Sister Mary Corita, posted in our, displayed in our center earlier this year? If you have, let me know. In fact, if you know of these things, let all of us know, and save us from a laughless heaven.